Hello, hello. I'm Della.
Hi, I'm Felicia.
And I'm Colleen.
And together we are the Butterfly Effect. So welcome to another show. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for yet another amazing conversation, a thought-provoking discussion. And we're so happy to be here. Thanks for being here, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you. I cannot wait to hear the audience's opinions and about this, because when I did some presentations last summer when COVID started, this was the one thing that most of the people asked about. So I'm so happy we're doing this.
Absolutely. I mean, the topic of boundaries, honestly, it's super important. And stepping up versus stepping aside. How important are boundaries in our lives? How important are boundaries in your life? Do you have a clear understanding of your boundaries? What are they? How do you decide what kind of boundaries you should have? How do you know how to keep your boundaries? These are all valid questions, and we are going to discuss them. So please join us in this discussion. Share this talk with your friends, because I think 100% of everybody can benefit from really getting clear on this. So we are asking you to please accompany us with your comments, your questions, and your experiences. And don't forget to give us a like, because we like those. So thank you for being here, ladies. Okay. Well, first of all, thanks for being here to both of you. Thanks for really volunteering your time. And I know how much work you both do and how much effort you put into preparing for this. So thank you so much. We have been doing these talks for I don't even know,
almost a year.
Almost a year.
Yeah, our first one was last May, so it's coming. A year's coming up quickly.
Oh my gosh, so amazing! Well, it's been so much fun, and there's been so much learning in this experience. So thank you so much to both of you. Well, are you ready? Let's just jump in. Any announcements before we start?
Well, Della, you always say thank you to us. How about we say now thank you to you? Because honestly, you are the top co-host, only because you are the tech person behind scenes of doing all the beautiful looking things out there. So thank you, Della. Thank you, Colleen, also. But thank you, because without you, I'm sure Colleen and I will put our heads together and do something. But it's the three of us that makes this show really the show that it is. I think our opinions shared and our heartfelt desire to share what we know with others makes this show different, I guess, than other shows. And thank you, audience. Thank you, all of you who are here with us, be that live or be that once it's recorded and you listen and you comment and you give us your feedback. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Well said. Colleen, what about you? Did you want to start with anything before we jump in?
I agree with both of you. We wouldn't have the show without our audience. So thank you to the audience. And Della, I agree with Felicia. I mean, we contribute for sure, but Della is the one who creates all the graphics and organizes the StreamYard and gets everything going. So yes, I agree. So thank you. I know that we're coming up on a year, and yeah, we wouldn't have, this is an amazing experience. I look forward to this every single month. So I hope that our audience does as well. And I know you guys do. So thank you. I'd like to say that as well.
Thank you. Well, you're so welcome. It's my pleasure. And actually, maybe we should pinpoint the fact that we've changed our logo just a little bit, just to make it a different look, just to keep it fresh. And if you noticed, our intro video is different. And so we put a lot of love into this show, and we certainly want to keep you engaged in the discussion. So I hope that you enjoy this. Okay, without further ado, let's say hello to our beautiful audience who are already here with us. So thank you for being here. Yay. And so with us, well, if you're here and watching, if you drop us a line, we can say hi to you. If you don't say anything, it's perfectly fine, but we'd like to say hello. So far we have Tracy, and she is sent us a message. And then we have Steve Weber. He says, thank you, Della. And he likes the topic, clear boundaries. Yes, definitely. And that's for you. See, that's what we do here. Another comment. It says a Facebook user, but I don't see a name. So, okay. So just to clarify this, I think we talked about this last time. Just a quick reminder that Facebook asks you if you want to allow StreamYard to show your name. So if you click yes, then we can see your name. If you don't click that, then we'll just see Facebook user. So there we go. Okay, let's get started.
Dive in.
Okay, so here we go. Colleen, as always, oh, there you go. Tracy says Kelly O'Neill is here too. So that must be Kelly O'Neill. Welcome, Kelly. Okay, you need that too. Okay, all right. So here we go. Colleen, did you look up the term boundaries?
I sure did. So I looked up personal boundaries, and the definition I got was the limits we set with other people, which indicate what we find acceptable and unacceptable in their behavior towards us. And that was at Psychology Today. Would you like me to repeat it?
I think you should.
Yes. Okay. Okay, so personal boundaries are the limits we set with other people, which indicate what we find acceptable and unacceptable in their behavior towards us.
Mm.
Okay. So there's so much right there to talk about. Okay. First things first, I want to pinpoint this. I totally saw it.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see the responsibility? Is the response when you read that definition, I totally went towards, okay, this is talking about responsibility. So whose responsibility is it to set boundaries? Right?
Yes, I agree with you 100%. And I think everybody in the audience just answered. That's why I think Paula or Felicia and I didn't answer, because we know that everybody in the room said we are each responsible to set our own boundaries.
Yes. So it takes me back to before I knew anything about boundaries. Of course, I suffered a lot because I didn't know my own boundaries. There was a lot being done to me.
Yeah.
And so I can't wait for us to start this. Okay, so let's go. I say we start with a question. So in your opinion, so you read what the dictionary says, in your opinion, and your definition of what boundaries are. So can we start with Colleen, please?
So I agree with the definition that I found. I think that, so for me, boundaries are who are you, your ability to set boundaries, I think, is tied to your self-worth, right? So are you putting your value or other people's value ahead of yours? So for me, boundaries is, if I'm trying to think about what a boundary is, I'm thinking about, am I thinking about my happiness, or am I always thinking about somebody else's happiness? Am I thinking about am I putting my needs first, or am I putting their needs first? Am I, those types of things. Is having a look at who am I putting value on? And I know that I say this almost every time we talk about anything personal development, is we teach people how to treat us. Mm-hmm. And if we don't set those, I think I've moved on to the next question, actually. If we don't set those boundaries.
I don't know what the next question is.
Yeah, I know. But if we don't set a boundary, we're devaluing ourselves to our own self-conscious, as well as telling other people that we are not important to put first.
Okay.
And I think that is why this is a really important topic. So to flip that around is what I started with, is if you notice, who are you putting the value on, right? Is it your feelings or other people's feelings that you're taking into consideration? Is it your desires or other people's desires? So that's where I would start. That's where I start when it comes to boundaries. How about you, Felicia?
Let me ask the audience too to give us their definition while Felicia is going to give us hers. So if you're watching this right now, you have a definition of boundaries. What is that to you? So if you could put it in the chat box for us, let us know. Okay, Felicia, your turn.
So I think that boundaries help us differentiate between when is a good time to say yes and when is a good time to say no. So think, for example, in the past 3 weeks, when you said yes to someone, but you really should have said no. Let's imagine that someone called you and wanted to talk to you. And you felt like, oh no, not again. Yet you answered the phone, or perhaps someone wanted money from you or whatever, really, Think about what it cost you. Your time, your energy, your feeling, perhaps even added more stress to your life. You see, we talked a bit earlier, or I think even last time or the time before, I have mentioned that I read this book called Boundaries, written by Dr. Henry Cloud and another doctor, which I skipped the name right now. So before I read this book, which sadly is only a few years ago, I had no clue what boundaries were. And I didn't even know the darn word existed, which is sad. So for me, simply put, is understanding who you are, what your needs are, what your core values are, your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, in order to set, like Colleen said, your own limits and rules, such as that others, including yourself, believe it or not, can feel emotionally and mentally safe. If you don't do this, then you will have others put limits on you or rules over you. But those rules and limits will be in their own terms, You just follow along doing what they want you to do. So I look at boundaries really, funny enough, I look at it like building muscles, like wanting to develop those muscles in order to stay healthy, not to pump up, let's say, for a photo shoot, to look good for that. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. It makes total sense. And so I know you always talk about boundaries. I know that that's one of the first things that you always talk about when it comes to boundaries. And you relate boundaries to self-love. I know you do that, and that resonates with me. Mm-hmm. So, okay, here we have a comment from Tracy too. She says, how are you willing to allow others to treat you? What are you able to accept? What your expectations of others are, and how you treat others without taking away from yourself.
I love it. Thank you, Tracy. Where's that little applause button?
Oh, yeah. There we go. I forgot about that. We like that. If you like to hear that applause, comment. So there's a lot in that. I think she summed it up really well. So for me, boundaries, just like you said, Felicia, I really didn't have a good definition of boundaries, because I think it stemmed from my people-pleasing history and, seeking validation from other people. And so there was no boundaries for me. And I needed to do what I needed to do, to get that validation or to say yes. And so I didn't know that what I was doing was really stepping all over myself. Like we talked about doormats, didn't we? We've talked about doormats. I think everybody can relate to what I'm saying, is that at one point of time, we have allowed other people to treat us like doormats. And it's going back to that definition from the dictionary. And where is the responsibility? The responsibility is not on other people, because they don't know what my boundaries are, because my boundaries are not the same as other people's boundaries. Okay. All right. So moving on. Yes, Colleen.
It just the discussion reminded me, when I went to my very first coach, one of the things that she pointed out or became apparent is that we're taught to be nice, right? Everyone, we're told, oh, be nice, keep the peace, do all that. And we get away from setting boundaries because we think that it's not nice to set boundaries. And it makes me think of, when you have that toddler, when you have a little kid and you have to set the boundaries because they need to know what the parameters are. What am I allowed to do? What am I not allowed to do? And if you don't set any boundaries for children, what happens?
They do whatever they want.
Yeah, they run them up, right?
It's a disaster.
And they destroy things, yes.
Yeah, and it's dangerous too.
So yeah, they put themselves in danger. They put you in danger. So if you think about boundaries in that context, and then put that to your emotions and other people's emotions as grown-ups, is that the same thing happens, is that if you don't set those parameters, people don't know what to do. And so things end up happening that could be dangerous or hurtful or whatever. So setting boundaries is not just, is not a negative thing. It's coming from a place of strength and as Felicia mentioned, safety, feeling safe. And I think that was a really good point.
Yeah. And funny enough, Proverbs 4:33 in Bible. And now here is the thing, guys. I know I'm a Christian, so I will probably refer to the book called the Bible, right? For me, it's the book that I
think I've heard of it before.
But the truth is, you don't have to be a Christian. And don't think that just because I'm a Christian, I demand that you absolutely... It's just a metaphor that I believe could be used regardless of where the information comes from, and regardless of you being a believer of God or the universe or the source love or whatever it is that you call it. Absolutely, there is something beyond us that created us. So whatever you want to call it, it's fine with me. But I remember the Bible says in Proverbs 4:33, guard your heart. So whatever you do, guard your heart, because everything flows from it. So that kind of, it's linked to these boundaries too. Because the truth is, if your heart believes what is not right, what is not true, what is not helpful, what is not beneficial, then your actions will reflect the same. So if we guard our heart, then we can act out from what is right and good and beneficial, not only for us, but also for others.
It's all so related. As you're talking, like, it's all really related. I mean, I think that if you love yourself, like, guard your heart. If you love yourself, you need to have boundaries. If you love other people, you need to have boundaries.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
I agree 100%. I think that if you think about it, the people that care about us, the last thing they want to do is to hurt us or take advantage of us, or, you know what I mean? If you said to somebody, when you do that, it makes me feel unappreciated, or it makes me feel like my opinion doesn't matter, or if you say that to somebody, if they love you, that's going to crush them, right? So by setting a boundary, you're helping them be the best way that they can be with you. So
it's interesting now, Colleen, because you said that, and it made me think about reading this book, what made me realize. And that was the simple fact that everything I've done up to reading the book and understanding that boundaries are necessary, not just that they exist, right? I realized that I've done everything from a place of insecurity and fear. And actually, I didn't know how to deal with, let's say, if someone said to me, no, I won't do that, or no, I can't do that. And I didn't know how to manage conflicts or differences of opinions, for example. And that impeded upon me understanding, or feeling heard respected and valued. And it had nothing to do with other people. It was just merely my I guess not having those boundaries, not having those. I used to say, yeah, I love people, but the truth is, reading this book, I realized that I can't take responsibility for people's feelings, for their core values, for their thoughts.
Okay, that's so good. So good. Okay, so my next question is, okay, now that we know what boundaries are and why they're important, right? We agree that they're important. Now it's time to set boundaries. Let's say I'm a person who's never thought of boundaries, who not clear about boundaries. How do we go about setting clear boundaries? And clear, what does that mean?
Well, first of all, I don't think we concluded that boundaries are important, have we? Why are they important?
I think we have so far. No, we've been talking about it for 10 minutes. Let's take a vote. But if you want to add something else to further that, go ahead.
Sure, I'll add something else. I'll add the fact that if you set boundaries, you will end up on your own schedule instead of being on somebody else's schedule.
Repeat that, please.
So I believe that if we set boundaries, we end up being on our own schedule instead of being on somebody else's schedule. So let me tell you how you can discern. It's quite easy. See, if you are able to do, or ask yourself, am I able to do what I need to do and what I want to do? Or am I always saying yes to people and I end up not having enough time for myself and the things I need to do? That's one way.
To know that you don't have boundaries.
No, to understand that by having boundaries, you will know, as I said earlier, when to say yes and when to say no. And therefore, your needs, your desires, your wants are to be taken care of before you keep on saying yes to everyone that comes to you, reaching out to you. And then at the end of the day, you end up not burnt out, stressed out, not having any time for yourself and your needs because you've extended not just the arms, just the whole you towards everybody else's needs.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm saying you will be at your own schedule, not other people's schedule.
Yeah.
Does it make sense? Like, I don't know. To me, it makes sense because I'm saying it, but I don't know what
So Felicia, just so that you know, it took me a minute to understand that you were saying schedule because of your accent. So
It's beautiful.
I love your accent, by the way. That wasn't a criticism.
I knew exactly what she meant. It's because it's because I have an accent myself. I know exactly what she meant. Okay, so Tracy says true, but if the person is feeling low, they are only thinking of others. How can they train themselves to respect their own boundaries? Not asking for myself, just really want your opinion for those in need.
So one of the things about boundaries is that boundaries are meant to be tested. And imagine every single boundary that you set will be tested by other people. And one of the very good reasons why that happens is that person, just again, we go back to that toddler, right? You say, don't touch that. What do? What's the first thing they do? Yeah, exactly. So they want to make sure, they want to test to see, how serious are you? Do you really mean it? And if you give in, it's like that toddler, right? If you give in, you're saying, no, I don't really mean it. So then they won't take that boundary seriously because you don't take it seriously. So there will be tests. And they could go on forever. Sometimes they continue to go on. And it's a great opportunity for us as an individual to check in with ourselves. Is this still important to me? Yes, it is. Stick to your guns. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean you can't be flexible, but there's certain things, and I think we're going to go into more detail later about deciding what is the minimum you're willing to accept, and what is like how far are you willing to go while still respecting and putting yourself, not necessarily yourself first, but respecting your wants, your desires, your opinions. Does that answer the question? Tracy, did I answer your question?
So how can they train themselves to respect their own boundaries? So I guess practice, right? Just like anything else, practice.
I think we need a skill here, guys. We need a skill of telling the truth and loving one another, because even the Bible says we are supposed to be rooted in love. So sometimes empaths, particularly people that feel other people's feelings and needs, and they want to extend themselves to help others, they leave themselves last, as I said earlier. And if we learn how to manage our own internal feelings and doubts, then we can tell the truth with love and care, but nonetheless tell the truth.
So Tracy says yes, Colleen. Great answer. So there's something here, and I want to address that. Sometimes in a relationship, we have a partner who's constantly being pushed. Okay. So maybe they're being abused. Okay. And I think we've all heard of a situation like that before. So where are boundaries in that relationship?
Well,
Colleen, you have to, sorry, Colleen was going to say, but you have to unmute yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I unmute myself?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Oh, okay. There must be a delay.
Yeah. So go ahead.
I think first we should say that abusive relationships are not the same. So I think, setting boundaries, because you have to remember that when someone is in an abusive situation, your sense of right and wrong and acceptable and unacceptable is very skewed. It gets very confused in your mind. So that is something where you should seek help outside of just basic conversation. But if you're talking about, if you find that you're with somebody who talks over you all the time, or you know what I mean, who has learned to show some disrespect towards you, staying away from the abusive side, I think that might be extreme. And you guys may disagree with me. I think that that's something that goes beyond what we're talking about here.
I see your point. I see your point. And I don't think I meant by abusive, I meant violence or anything like that. Okay. But I think Tracy says it like more of a submissive relationship, where one person, like you said, maybe they cutting you off. Maybe they get away with more stuff than you want them to.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. Yeah.
So most people want to be heard, understood, respected, and accepted. So as long as your response comes from that place, you can acknowledge what they're saying. You don't have to agree with people. That's like somehow that became important for people. The reality is whether or not we agree is irrelevant. Do you still love somebody who has a different opinion than you?
And we should be able to, right? Yeah.
So acknowledging somebody, saying, I hear you. You don't have to say, I understand, I agree. I hear you. And I don't like the word but. One of the first thing I learned about boundaries is take the word but in regards to, connecting two ends parts of a sentence, and take it out of your conversation and replace it with the word and. I hear you. Mm-hmm. And
yes,
I have a difference of opinion. And I'm okay with that.
Yes.
Right. So depending on what the situation is, acknowledge the person in whatever way that you feel is acceptable and necessary. And then you state what your point of view is, or where you're coming from. And there's not a negotiation. It's not a conversation. It's a statement.
Thank you.
Right. So, my dad and I used to not get along very well. And I realized that it was because when I had a difference of opinion with him, he took it as that I didn't respect him, or I didn't love him, or I didn't value him. And that wasn't the case at all. So the way I approached him had to change. I said, I hear you and I love you. You know what I mean? Like I had to make sure that he knew that the fact that I don't agree with him or that I have a different opinion doesn't mean that he doesn't mean the world to me. And so as long as you're coming from a place of love and you keep in mind that the people want to be heard, understood, respected, and accepted, you will always end up in a better place. And you can still set your boundaries.
I heard non-negotiable boundaries. I really like that, non-negotiable boundaries. Okay, Paul, Felicia, sorry, go ahead. I know you have something to add to that.
Well, I think it to me it comes down to understanding how to manage conflicts. One of the obstacles of not setting boundaries is the fear of conflict. And often people, depending on what,
the audience loved that.
This is, I think, when you ask yourself, what kind of training did I get at the dinner table growing up? For example, if dad gets mad, no one else is allowed to get mad, or else, right? Or mom gets mad and dad leaves the room crying. Or better yet, the best example is Italians. Oh my gosh, I was married to one for many years. They get all excited. Everyone raises their voices. They become like a chorus in the kitchen of hurt feelings, yet no problems get solved. But being exposed to that kind of environment, it gets you okay with conflict. Because often we avoid conflict because we don't know how to set boundaries. When somebody gets mad, if we grow up in a home like that, nothing gets resolved, yet everybody is, either when dad is mad, you just don't disappear, right? You don't talk, it's important to discuss, as Colleen said. There will be differences of opinion. There will be moments when there are good, bad, and ugly days. And in those days, I think some adults that have fear of conflict will withdraw from someone that raises their voice or demands and say nothing because they are afraid that they're going to be left alone. I mean, if I say no to you, you're not going to love me. If I say, something that it's not agreeable with what you're saying, you may just take your toys and leave me, and you become a people pleaser because you do not have the skills of handling conflicts. And even, again, Bible says, please God, not people. Learn how to please God, not people. And I think it's also, even with kids, like if we look at it, if a parent, for example, is trying to teach a child something and he's losing his temper and he's acting like a child himself, having a tantrum, the child may end up doing what the parent says, but only because the poor kid is scared to death. So what is the parent learning, and also the child, is that when I'm angry, I get what I want, right? But that's not the way to go. It's okay to say to even an adult, even a child, I understand you are upset right now. I understand you, exactly as Colleen said, acknowledge their feelings, because every single one of us have this need of being heard and being valued, of being loved. And how do we do that? How do we do that better than being empathizing rather with the person beside you that is it's hurt, regardless of how they react, because maybe they don't know how. That's how they've learned growing up, right? But again, we go back to responsibility. Our responsibility as a mother, as a wife, is not to, especially as a wife, because you said partners in relationships, our responsibility is not to have this man or teach this man that is supposed to be our partner. We have to now teach him how to behave. Like he's not a child.
But isn't that part of setting boundaries, is not to teach that person how to behave, but how to treat us? Right? And so that's not even just in a partnership, in a marital relationship or anything like that. I think it's with everybody.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I think how to behave, I think, is a different. I'm not sure that I think you meant it in the same way that we're taking it, in that our boundaries and setting our limits around what we're comfortable with is not, the behave is not the word I would use. It is demonstrating to them what's acceptable behavior towards me,
what I can
right?
accept.
Which
Yes.
I get what you're saying in regards to the connection to behavior.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think I agree with you. I'm just using different words.
Does that resonate, Paula?
No, totally. I believe that's the case. Sometimes I use certain words and they don't make sense to you guys because I'm processing it in a different language. And
just out of curiosity, what language do you process in?
I'm Romanian.
So that's the language you process in, because you also speak Italian, so,
and Spanish. I'm studying those languages, French, Italian, and Spanish. And actually, lately I added Mandarin. But yeah.
Okay, so but what have you learned in Mandarin lately? Let's hear something. Have you learned?
Hey, Mom.
What does that mean?
How are you?
Say it again.
I'm not gonna say it. I don't even know the sound is correct yet. I'm only a level 1 in Mandarin, so let me get to level 4, 5.
That's really impressive.
And
that's really impressive. I'm so impressed by you right now. Okay, Tracy says, I think that I mean that perhaps you have listeners in a bad relationship. These people need to know that they have every right and capability to set boundaries. This may help them seek the help they need. Otherwise, they stay stuck in a toxic place. Totally agree, Tracy. There's there are lots of people stuck, and so we're hoping that from this talk, that's what we're hoping for, right? We're hoping to help at least one person out of a sticky situation. That's really what we're hoping for. So okay, so let's move on, shall we?
Sure.
To another question. Let's see here.
But let's ask the audience first, have we answered that question? Because as you said, there might be people that are dealing with conflicts in their relationship and they don't know how to set their boundaries or what to cross. What does the line crosses over to the other side?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so thank you for that. Yes, please do answer in the comments. So I think what I want to know more about is we kind of answered what keeps us from setting boundaries. We kind of said a little bit. Do you want to elaborate on that, Colleen, a little bit more?
I agree with Felicia. I think that fear is the biggest one. I think for me, that was one of the biggest ones. I think we also, because we get so comfortable where we are, whether even in bad situations, right? There's some safety in that. So going outside of that, you feel scared that, well, what if I set my boundary and then they don't want to talk to me anymore? Or what if I set my boundary and it's over? I think that's the fear. And Felicia, maybe you were talking about a different fear, but for me, I think for a lot of people, it's that fear of, well, at least I know what I can take here. And I don't know what their response is going to be if I start setting a boundary. So I think the fear is probably the biggest one. What other ones, Felicia, did you come across?
According to specialists, okay, and also in the book Boundaries, Dr. Henry Cloud mentions 3 particular fears that are believed to be obstacles to setting healthy boundaries. And the first fear is fear of loss of a relationship. Mm-hmm. Like the way I said, if I set limits or I disagree or disappoint you or I confront you, then I will lose my relationship. You will leave me, right? And the second one is fear of the of conflict. You do not want to have conflict at all costs. You better say yes for the rest of your life to this person. You are not going to say no, no matter what the person does. Why? Because you want to avoid any conflict whatsoever, because you grew up in that family where you knew, let's say, that dad or the man in the family has the last say, right? And the last one that he mentions in the book is the fear of feeling guilty. And that's what this guilt is discussed of us, is more so to do with the fact that you come from a place of love, and you believe that if you set boundaries or disagree with anyone, then you will damage them, you will hurt them. But I think the reality of it is we confuse sometimes hurt with harm. Like, for example, I gone to the dentist many years ago, and I can tell you I paid a lot of money, and that darn dentist really hurt me. Like, I was in a lot of pain for weeks, okay? But did the dentist harm me? No, the dentist hurt me. But sometimes the tough love equals, in this boundaries topic, tough talks, right? So sometimes hurting somebody might be the only way that you may be able to help them transform and understand how important it is to set boundaries for themselves. And also to important, as Pauline said in the beginning of our discussion today, that if you set the boundaries straight, then the people will know your parameters. Like, imagine you buy a home and you do not know where your land starts and where it ends, right? Then you don't know what your property is, what your boundary of the property is. So you can cross over the other people and they end up suing you. Or you may want to build, I don't know, a shed, and you go in 2 houses from that are is not supposed to be yours because there is no boundaries set apart, right? So let's recap. First of all, I said fear of loss of a relationship, fear of the conflict, so you avoid conflict, and fear of guilt, because you come from a place of no, I can't hurt you. I don't want to destroy you. You know, I can't depress you. I can't make you sad. And the best example in this particular last one is children, parents. I mean, you guys are both parents, but even if you're not a parent, you might be I don't know, an aunt, right? So with children, what was I gonna say? I lost my train of thought. Come on, tell me out.
You were gonna give us an example of the last one.
Of the fear of the guilt?
Yes.
So let's say you are extremely careful how you behave, how you say things, because you are so fearful and scared that if you don't, then that the person in front of you you will harm them. Basically, you will harm them. But again, hurting somebody versus harming somebody is completely different. I don't know. Does it make sense? Okay, I have it. Becoming a mom, I realize that we all desperately need structure, order, and love. Right? So sometimes we have this problem with the word no. Okay, we do. Think about the last time somebody said no to you. Okay, just think about it. How did you feel? Now, that will determine clearly if you understand and respect boundaries or lack boundaries. Because respecting the other person enough, you will tell them the truth. And you will trust that they will adapt to that no, if the no means that you can't simply because you're too tired or you have too much on your plate right now.
Getting better at that, by the way. Getting better. So Tracy says, how about fear of being abused verbally or physically? So you don't set boundaries because you're afraid of being abused physically or verbally.
I think that ties up to the fear of avoiding conflict.
Yes, I guess this is the extreme case, right? Of being.
Yeah.
So
before we run out of time, I've got some steps on setting boundaries. Would we
Oh,
have?
I really like, yeah, I like us to get into that for sure. Let me just check here if there's any. Oh, Raha's here and she's saying hi.
Hello.
I just wanted to check our questions here, make sure that we are on track here. Yeah, we're good. Yes, you can walk us through some steps of how to set boundaries.
So I know Paula has a 4-step system.
Felicia,
Sorry, Felicia. I know Felicia has a 4-step system as well, and I'm very curious to see how similar they are. So I'm going to go through mine fairly quickly. So
go
4
ahead.
steps.
People take notes, please.
Yeah. Number 1. So number 1 is know what you want, right? So you have to decide, make that decision of what is the worst case scenario that I'm comfortable with? What are my limits? What's the minimum? What's the maximum? And obviously you want it to be in your best interest. You also want to know that you want to have some flexibility when you're talking to people and setting those boundaries. So what is a deal breaker and what is flexible? So you need to start by knowing what those limits are before you start to set a boundary.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, honor yourself. You always want to make sure that you're not giving up of yourself outside of what you're comfortable with. Whether that's your time or your energy, whether that's, your personal bubble, your physical boundaries. You want to make sure that you're honoring yourself and you're aware of that whatever your boundary you accept is going to honor yourself and the other person, obviously, but you want to make sure that you don't lose that respect for yourself in the process. And because whatever you set, you're creating the value that the other person and you see for yourself. Number 3, get ready to be tested. So this is what I was talking about earlier, right? Practice makes perfect, and the tests are just a check-in. Do you really mean it? And if you really mean it, then stick to it. Mm-hmm. If you're flexible, be flexible. There's no right or wrong. It's being aware. So, and especially if setting boundaries is new to you, you might be inclined to give in because of those fears that Felicia was talking about. So you want to make sure that you're aware of what those boundaries are, what you're comfortable with, and how far you're willing to bend. Mm-hmm. Number 4 is be willing to walk away. Now that can be as drastic as leaving a relationship, or that can be as simple as ignoring a text because somebody's, right? It could be as simple as just saying, okay, I'm going to go for a walk now, removing yourself from the situation. But be ready to step back and step away if the situation is not being respectful to everybody, all the parties involved. So
thank you. I really like those 4 steps. So just a recap, please, without the explanation, so that we can
sure.
remember them.
Number 1, know what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, honor yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Number 3, get ready to be tested.
Mm-hmm.
And number 4, be willing to walk away.
Love it. Love it. Okay. I got to tell you that Caitlin is here and she's saying, hello, Auntie Colleen, miss you and love you. You look beautiful. There's a lot of family love going on here. Tracy says, I love you, Caitlin. Oh, me and Felicia.
We are just lonely here. It's okay.
Nobody.
We have each other.
I love you, ladies.
Okay, so here, that reminded me before we go to Felicia. Okay, I was taught this, and my coach said to me, when you set boundaries, your responsibility is part of your responsibility is to keep the boundaries.
Yeah.
So it's not just as easy as saying to your partner, whoever, just a relationship, this is not okay for me, is to actually be willing to to do something about it.
Yes, a consequence.
Right? The consequence is really important, because without the consequences, you're not being clear. Okay, what's going to happen if you step over my boundaries? What is going to happen? And once you have that consequence in, said, then you need to stick to it, because then you're just telling other people that this boundary is just blur. It's a wishy-washy. I'm not really serious about it. So you'll be tested and tested and tested again. Okay, thank you. Okay, Felicia, your turn to give us your steps.
So I will start with monitoring your lies. And again, that comes from the book I read, Boundaries, right? And what does that mean? It's really, let's say a friend calls you and asks you how you're doing. And you say, I'm fine. Yet you had the worst day of your life, but you're not saying it. So if you cannot say no, for example, ask yourself, why can't I say no? What is my fear? Is it losing a relationship? Is it because I can't deal with conflict, because I cannot handle the truth? Or is it because I feel guilty and I don't want to hurt people? Because I feel hurt if I harm them. So there is a kind of a codependent dilemma here. This is just, I guess, going back to rephrasing those three obstacles. So what I will ask you to do, and particularly you, Della, because I've heard you have a challenge by using the word no, I will tell you this. Use it every day. Make it part of your daily friend.
No. Okay. I deserve one of these. Hold on.
Yes, we're having fun with that.
Okay, tell me.
And so first, monitor your lies, okay? When you actually don't tell people how you feel or how your day went, because you just can't share. Or you can say no, you always say yes, and you leave yourself last without means to take care of your own needs, okay? And third is monitor, but also learn how to master. How are you giving your power away? And to who and why? You see, most time when I'm afraid to say no and afraid to speak the truth or to be honest, I'm really giving my power to someone else. And I know, I'm sure you know somebody, or you have heard of somebody who, or people out there who have given up on things like businesses and marriages just to keep somebody happy. And the truth is, it's not worth it. You must stand up for what is true in your heart and write your own book, or direct your own movie. Otherwise, someone else will come in and will do it for you. And it will not be done according to you, but rather according to their needs, beliefs, and truths. So do your homework. Learn what you live by, what your core values are. Learn to be true to yourself first. So that way, the truth is, those ones that are meant to stay in your life and love you will love you forever. They're not going to count how many times you're wrong or how weak you are because you tell the truth and you sometimes, you feel vulnerable or you have a bad day. They're going to count their blessings because they know how well you love them and how much they love you, So, yeah.
Okay. You only gave us one step.
No, it's three.
You gave us 3 steps?
First,
okay.
The truth is, we all lie. If we say to somebody, yes, I can help you. Yes, I can do this for you. Yes, no problem. I'll be there for you. Yes, and yes, and yes, and no. And yes, you never say no. You're a liar. You're a liar because you lie to yourself. Because you know that you can't do it, but you do it anyway because you feel you have to.
You can't say no.
So number one is notice your lies.
Monitor your lies.
Monitor your lies.
number 2, it's practice no every single day.
That was number 2.
Make no your friend. Honestly, it's impossible to be there for everyone as they need it. Impossible.
Yeah.
So
I agree with you.
say no, you can still be loving and caring, but still, honor yourself. That's not being selfish. That's being respectful towards you, but also towards the other person.
Yes. Yes.
Right? Because if you say yes, for example, and you give the help or you're there for them, but you're feeling horrible, you grumpy, you resentful, but you do it anyway, that doesn't help you, it doesn't help them.
No.
You get the job done, but overall everybody suffers.
Yeah.
Right?
I agree. Okay, so practice saying no. Number 2. That's okay. What was number 3?
And number 3 was to monitor how you're giving your power away, why and to whom.
See, I totally missed those steps before. Okay, so monitor how you're giving your power away and to whom.
And to whom and why. And why.
And why.
That's why it's important now to really work on yourself and understand what you stand for. What is your core belief about life, about everything, really, relationships, money, work, family. If you understand where you come from, then you can tell people this is what I like and this is what I don't like. It's the same thing going back to saying, I want to understand, when do I say yes and I mean it? And when do I say no and I mean it?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So those are the steps. And the homework is really to that's very much your assignment. If you say yes, but the reality is you cannot, right? You cannot, let's say, but you can tell people no. It's like giving somebody a check, all right? Because they asked for it, but there is no money to be cashed from that check.
Oh, I like that. That's a good analogy. I like it.
So,
then you get in trouble.
You see, it's learning that skill of telling the truth in love. Telling the truth in love. Otherwise, you're going to not have peace, and neither are the others. I like to think of what Mother Teresa said. Said that if you want to do something like this, like I quote, but I'm not really word by word. It's something to do with, or something that sounds like, if you want to do one thing good in life, go home and love your family.
I like that, but I would like it more if it was love yourself first, because that's where everything starts.
So when I think of boundaries, I think of a quote just popped into my head. Like I made it up in my head, so you can tell me if it works or if it doesn't work. Is basically, when it comes to boundaries, give your loved ones the gift of teaching them how to make you happy. That's what boundaries means to me. Is helping other people understand what's important for you.
To me, it's like Dr. Henry Cloud said. He says that having boundaries, you will pretty much take your life back. Because, okay, you said that it's about making yourself happy or knowing how to teach others how to make you happy.
Mm-hmm. That's what she said.
That's part of it, yeah.
I disagree with that, because to me, happiness doesn't come from what other people say or do. You've got to learn how to make yourself happy, regardless of what happens around you. So
that's a different topic, because we're out of time. I need to put a stop on this right now. Okay, so we've got Tracy saying, in my 32-year relationship, the moment I set boundaries, he left me. It was the best thing ever. It was a toxic relationship. Good on you, Tracy. Marianne said, yes, Della, self-love first. Marianne says, great subject, ladies. Thank you. And Tracy says, yes. Yes. Yeah. Okay. All of you. Okay, girls. We've been talking for an hour, and it has been a blast. And I am so, so grateful to both of you with all of your knowledge and the way you share your knowledge with everyone, and just so generously. Thank you. Mwah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you, Tracy, and everyone else that was there with us today. And thank you for those who are listening afterwards. Please, please, please give us your feedback. we like to learn from you too. You learn from us, but we learn from you. So we're here for one another.
Yes, we
called unity.
love to hear from you. Yes, we love to hear from you. And so please let us know any thoughts, any topics you may want to discuss. That would be awesome too. We're always looking for interesting topics. Okay, we're just having way too much fun here. That's what this is. We're learning and we're having fun. And that makes it super special for us. And I want to thank you. Oh, because Tracy says thank you. You three are awesome.
Thank you.
I think so. Okay. All right. So our next show is the third Thursday of April. And I have no idea what date that would be.
The 15th.
The 15th.
Yeah, the 15th of April.
That's early. Okay. All right. Perfect. So the 15th of April is our next show. Here, we already have a suggestion: integrity in business.
Ooh, I like it.
I like it.
Absolutely.
I like it too.
That's it.
So yeah,
and with self, I think
I think so too. Integrity in general. I think that's a great topic. Okay. All right. So we've got ourselves some work to do, ladies.
Yes.
All right, so everyone, thank you so much for joining us for the past hour and for all of your comments and the love and Colleen's family for being here
with us. Yes,
thank you so much. We love you back. And
this is the butterfly effect, bringing you love,
hope,
and compassion.
Bye.
Until next time, everybody, have a blessed night. Mwah.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye bye. Wait a moment. I'm just gonna remove us and play our outro. Okay. Okay. Bye.